Our profession is by its very nature adversarial. But that doesn't mean you got to hate the people on the other side. The most important part of practicing law is that you can go in the courtroom, you can be cussing somebody, you can be fighting them like hell, and then go eat lunch together. You have to be a zealous advocate, but you don't got to be a jerk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Practical Law, a podcast that covers all things South Carolina legal related, talking to great trial lawyers here in the state. Today, we have a very special guest. I'm honored to be in the offices of Gedney Howe IV. Gedney comes from a long line of great trial lawyers here in South Carolina, so I'm looking forward to talking to him about his career and what he does in his practice to maintain that level of excellence and talk about what it means to carry a brand forward over generations. Just very happy to be here in Charleston with Gedney, and hope you're doing well, my friend.
Doing good. Thanks for coming down, Chris. I appreciate it.
Gedney, tell the folks a little bit about you. Tell us about your law practice and your career so far.
Sure. My name is Gedney. I'm Gedney Howe IV. I practice here. I used to practice with my daddy. He passed away earlier this year. We practice in Charleston, and my family's been in Charleston for longer than I think anybody really likes to admit. My granddaddy, Gedney Howe Jr., was a lawyer. His brother, Arthur Howe, was a lawyer. Every one of my granddaddy's children became lawyers. My dad, my Uncle Bobby, my Uncle Dingle, and my Aunt Belle. All of them were lawyers. Practicing law is a family tradition. You walk down Broad Street and there's Howe signs everywhere. You got Eureka Howe and Krell that doesn't have any Howes. Waring Howe, Bobby Howe used to be out there. It's just a tremendous family of people who like practicing law.
You can't go a block without seeing it. I mean, you got your granddaddy's bus down here right when you walk in, and then, like you said, you turn on Broad Street, and it's every
all
other
over the place. The firm was started in 1937, and my daddy took over from his daddy, and I took over from my daddy. I've been practicing. When bar results come out next month, it'll officially be a whole 5 years. But in those 5 years have been kind of a roller coaster. It's wide open right now. Talking about maybe bringing on another lawyer, always looking for another paralegal. You know how that struggle is. Just trying to keep the place staffed is always a battle. But we've got some really interesting things that we're working on. Stuff that's pretty engaging. On the heels of losing my daddy earlier this year, it is encouraging and has reinvigorated me into the practice that we have, getting some reception with the Shrimpgate case, and we've gotten some traction with the NFL case and just winning some victories. And like you said, carrying on that legacy, but bouncing back from that tragedy has been a big part of what's been going on over here this year.
I'm so sorry about your dad. I know how much he meant to you and really everybody. I remember my first memory of your dad is I was a little kid. My folks were in politics, and your dad had some big deal going on down here, because I remember my parents coming down here to stay and talking about meeting your dad, but that's, decades ago. And then when I was in law school, of course, he would come and speak. And that's really when I think first realized how great a orator and how great of a trial lawyer he was. What he did obviously had an influence on you becoming a lawyer. Talk about that a little bit.
One of the things that made me really want to be a lawyer, when I was young, we'd do things, Dad and I would do a lot of stuff together, but the one that stands out to me is we'd go to a baseball game. We'd go see the River Dogs play at Joe Riley Stadium. And we'd walk through to the stadium just to our seats. And you couldn't go 5 steps without somebody stopping to talk to Dad. What really made an impression on me was, when I was young, was just, Dad knows everybody. Why does Dad know everybody? But then as the years went by and I grew and matured a little bit, I noticed that it was different. It was not a celebrity. It was not, oh my God, it's Gedney Howe, I get to meet you. The people that were stopping and talking to us were regular people. And the things they were saying is, Mr. Howe, I'll never forget how you were there for our family when my daddy got killed.
Right.
I'll never forget how you stepped up for us when my son got these charges and you showed everybody he was innocent the whole time. And it was lives that he had changed and touched on a scale that I still have trouble comprehending. And that was one of the things that really motivated me to go into the practice of law. And that is something I still think about every day when I'm here, is leaving that lasting positive impact on people's lives.
I love that. No, and that's so true. I mean, that's just the guy he was. So one thing that interests me is, so you have this legacy to live up to. You've got this great man that, it's got to be a lot of pressure following in his footsteps. But that's something your dad dealt with, because your granddad was also a great lawyer. So when I think of your family, I'm like, little Gedney has a lot of the same probably challenges your dad did, or a lot of that same pressure.
My daddy used to complain about it all the time. especially when one of his stories he'd tell when he was younger, my daddy was younger, he was a hard worker. He'd outworked everybody. I don't think anybody would argue that. There were some people, especially some of my granddaddy's friends, who loved to poke fun at my granddaddy, and my daddy said, boy, that Ged sure is lucky. Boy, that little Gedney, he's lucky. And it drove my dad crazy because he was in here 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, just grinding. And anytime the word lucky came up, he would lose his mind. He couldn't stand it. When I got older, and especially as I got closer to the age to start practicing law, coincidentally, I got a lot bigger than my daddy is. And his friends started poking fun at him for, well, I guess you're going to have to be little Gedney again. And his line was always, I've been little Gedney for 50 years, damn it. It's somebody else's turn.
No doubt.
You inherit a lot, including large shoes to fill, big expectations. And I think my daddy rose to fill them, and I hope in time to rise to fill the shoes that got left for me.
Well, you're absolutely doing it right now. Schmutz told me a funny thing. Steve Schmutz, who friends with your dad, smooth guy. He said, Gedney told me once, he said, imagine if I was worthless. Imagine if I just, was a terrible lawyer and just did a half-assed job. He said, what would they say about me then? They wouldn't say lucky. They'd say, oh, he had the world and he threw it away.
That's right.
So he's like, you can't win, man. You just got to go out there and do good work. And your dad definitely did that. So talk to me about the practice. So you guys, how many lawyers you got working with you now?
2.5 or 3, depending on the day. Alvin Hammer's here. Alvin was my daddy's partner for 45, 50 years. But Alvin is 78 years old.
Right.
Alvin is, hands down, without a doubt, the smartest lawyer I've ever met in my life. He doesn't use a computer. He does all his legal research in our library. We get the supplements all the time.
Right.
If you ask him a question, the answer is in one of 2 places. And it's in an expandable that he carries around with him. Almost every case that exists is in that folder. Or he can walk you into the library, go to, the 3rd shelf over, get on the ladder, go to the 5th shelf up, and grab the books are double stacked. He'll grab the book in the back and flip almost to the exact page. He's the smartest guy I've ever met. So Alvin's here practicing, helping us out, but he doesn't really like to tinker with the smaller stuff. He comes in and likes to work on the bigger cases and hangs out, but he's a couple hours a day, a couple days a week. For the most part, it's me and Michael Monastra in here grinding it out every day, in the trenches.
I understand. I mean, one of the, talking about going back to your dad, one of the things he said just about working hard and doing the right thing is the simple stuff, right? Like return your phone calls. I know your dad was always real big on that.
Call your clients back.
Call your clients back, right? When you go into the office in the morning, what do you say is hey, these are the core values that I got to live up to keep that brand, to keep this law firm operating at the high level of success it has operated for.
One of the things that I think my granddaddy instilled on my daddy, and my daddy kind of really pushed on me, is it is possible to be a good guy, be a good person, and be a good lawyer. And that's something I think, especially these days, we've drifted away from a little bit with. Atticus Finch is not the television lawyer anymore. Right. The lawyers you see on TV, they're jerks, they're sharks, they try to screw each other over. There's a bust of my granddaddy downtown. And my dad always used to say, you don't get a statue for being a good lawyer, you get it for being a good person. And my daddy's talked to that. I mean, I think you went to Bridge the Gap. That was one of his things at Bridge the Gap is, all profession is by its very nature adversarial. But that doesn't mean you got to hate the people on the other side.
Right.
The most important part of practicing law is that you can go in the courtroom, you can be cussing somebody, you can be fighting them like hell, and then go eat lunch together.
Yeah.
It's part of what makes the system. You have to be a zealous advocate, but you don't got to be a jerk.
100%.
And so that's something that one of the values that I always aspire to and fairly often fall short of, but I do my best.
Right.
And, this is a service industry. You are employed by the client. Now, I always make it clear with the clients who's in charge. It's me. I know what I'm doing. Y'all don't.
Right.
There's no questions about that. But one of the things my daddy used to tell me is how you turn down the business is 10 times as important as how you take it on.
Don't I say that all the time,
right.
You guys? how you turn down the business is important to how you take it on. That's great.
I mean, you can build a good reputation for 50 years and screw it up in one day. And when you turn those cases down, I try to sit down, read it, make a decision, call the client, talk to them a little bit, be nice to them. And I don't mean talk to them for 30 seconds. I mean, talk to them for a few minutes. Give them your time. Lawyers used to be called counselors because I'm not just here to be your lawyer. I'm here to give you good counsel. And sometimes the best counsel is there's nothing here we can do. Just try to move on.
Move on. Close the book. Yeah. You're talking about Bridge the Gap with your dad, and he had so many good little stories. But I loved one thing he always said was about reliability, right? He's like, so what do you call somebody who shows up 80% of the time? They're unreliable. Right?
That's right.
What do you call somebody that shows up 90% of the time?
Unreliable.
You got to be 100% in everything you do.
That's right.
Otherwise, you might as well be at zero.
That's right.
And so I love that mindset and that attitude. And talking about the professional law right now, and tell me what you think where we are as a profession, because I mean, our public image. You talked a lot about that. The Atticus Finch lawyer is kind of gone from a public perception. What do we need to do to make the practice of law better?
I've been practicing law for 5 years. I don't claim to know everything, and my right to harken back to the good old days might not be super sound, but my daddy was 78 when he passed away. I grew up with an older daddy, and I always heard stories about how practicing law used to be. Back, especially in Charleston, when everybody was on Broad Street. You walk out of your office at 4:30 in the afternoon. Every corner on Broad Street, it was a little huddle of lawyers, heads together, talking about something, smoking a cigar, got a glass of something in their hand. But it was a real community here in Charleston that was, because they were all on the same street, everybody was working together, both sides of the V. If I'm not against you on a case, let me bounce this idea off. You collaborating on how to do things. That we've lost that. As Charleston has grown, people migrate out to North Charleston, to Somerville, to Mount Pleasant, and we've lost some of the sense of community. I think the Charleston County Bar Association does a good job of trying to keep that together, but we've lost it through the growth. Sure. I think also that people who come to practice here, if you work for one of these mega firms, if you come in here and you crack skulls and you act terrible to everybody for 2 or 3 years, you might get a promotion and get moved somewhere else.
Right. Just move on out of it and you don't have to deal with consequences.
It's very different from the old school traditional small bar. You can't treat somebody poorly because you're going to see them again. You might have a leg up on me today, but tomorrow I'm going to have one over on you.
That's right. How you want to practice law, how you want to live your life. Right?
Exactly. And that I think that has been a overall negative for the practice of law, is this shift in culture.
One of the things I find interesting is, and I always say, because you don't do a lot of advertising. I mean, word of mouth is how you get your cases.
My dad used to say, we don't advertise, but do we market?
That's right. And I mean, and I know that you're the same way. I mean, I've got, like we were laughing, I've got the Gedney Howe golf tees at my house. But besides that, I mean, it seems like to me that your work product and your results are your best marketing, right?
One of my daddy's best friends growing up was my granddaddy Boone. He was an old black guy who was a carpenter, and he was a carpenter here in Charleston for 80 years. And I have it. It's on my refrigerator downstairs in Carl's and Granddaddy Boone's funeral printout, and they gave out magnets shaped like a handsaw. It said, "May the work I have done speak for me." Mm-hmm. And that's something another thing I think about a lot, and that is my number one advertising marketing goal is doing a good job, treating people right, and trying to build a good reputation. If you put good out, you're going to get good in.
It's so true, man. I think one of the dumbest things that a lawyer can do is they run out there and they say, I'm going to be a plaintiff's lawyer. I'm going to go buy 100 billboards. And they throw all their money and their efforts into marketing, right, or advertising. And they haven't put a tenth of much thought as how am I going to handle the case when it comes in the door, right? So they spend all this money on marketing, and then they get a bunch of pissed off clients because they're like, well, fine.
And suddenly you got 400 clients and 2 lawyers and no staff, and you're swamped, and you're doing a bad job on the cases, and you're taking bad care of the clients. And it goes back to what Daddy said, you're unreliable. It doesn't matter how good your reputation was before that. Now you got 50 people out there bad-mouthing.
Oh,
and is it even possible to recover from that? I don't know.
That's absolutely true.
My daddy used to say, you don't decide what kind of law you're going to practice. The market decides for you. Out of the gate, I got thrown into a lawsuit that my dad and Alvin and a whole host of other lawyers, Dick Harpulian, Bakari Sellers, Mullins McLeod, Carl Pierce, everybody was working on this thing. And it was us against the Department of Justice and the FBI.
And that's the Emanuel shootings. I mean, talk about that. What a great, so that was one of the first cases you worked on.
Ever.
Tell the folks about that. That's such an amazing story, really, that case.
Yeah. So years ago, a fellow named Dylan Roof walked into the Emmanuel 9 church in downtown Charleston and joined these people for their evening prayer session and their Bible study. And towards the end of the Bible study, he stood up and he pulled out a gun and he murdered 9 people and injured several others. Alvin Hammer, our legal mastermind, kind of stitched together this idea, this concept of a case with the limited facts we had at the time. His theory was the government has a duty to screen. They do the background checks. They've assumed this duty. The law books say it's not a duty they're capable of breaching. We didn't agree with that. But through discovery, we found that there were these massive shortcomings with the background check system that played out and were not theoretical. They are how Dylan Roof got a gun. He was not eligible to buy a firearm. But when they ran the background check, I believe they checked West Columbia, and West Columbia said, call Columbia, and they just never did. And so the time period expired, and he got his pistol, and 2 weeks later he went and shot all those folks. And
had they checked with Columbia, they would have
he would have been ineligible, and he wouldn't have been able to buy that gun. Yeah. I joined the firm. I started practicing. At that point, the case had already been to federal court, got thrown out, gone up to the Fourth Circuit, got appealed, we won the appeal, got remanded, but due to COVID and just kind of the trailblazing nature of the case, it kind of stalled out.
Right.
I think that I will take credit for bringing a renewed energy and interest within this firm to the case and said, all right, let's deal with this. But It was one of the first cases I ever worked on, and it was one of the biggest cases we've ever handled. The case settled later at mediation for $88 million, but we represented 8 of the 9 people that had been murdered, and in total, I think we had 13 clients and some other, in conjunction with other lawyers. But it was a tremendous case. And one of the first things I ever did was just reviewing the discovery. And I didn't even have my bar results back yet, and I had found some deficiency. I told my dad about it. He said, all right, let's get him on the phone, Ged. So we called the Department of Justice. And again, I've been practicing for 6 weeks. We called the Department of Justice and look at my dad now. And you going to tell him about it? Dad goes, no, son, you found it. You tell him. Oh, hello, sir. My name's Gedney Howe. I wanted to tell you. And my dad goes over, he kicks me, goes, son, tell him with your chest. And so I'm unbarred, screaming on the phone because my dad's punching me in the arm, screaming at these DOJ lawyers about some pedantic, unimportant thing that they hadn't produced, some just nothing point. But my daddy was bullying me into just breaking this guy off.
That's right. Getting you trained up, man. It
was a unique way of training me, but 6 months later, a lawyer was yelling at me on the phone. I went, you can't talk to me like this. Right. It instilled in me, if I can yell at the federal government, I can yell at anybody, and I don't have to take no guff off anybody.
That's it, man. So starting out with that case, you get thrown in the deep end of the pool there. Let's talk about some of the more recent cases. Let's talk about the shrimp.
So the shrimp cake case has been a wild ride.
Major scandal happening in Charleston.
An investigation reveals that many local restaurants claiming to serve local shrimp are actually dishing out imported farm-raised seafood.
In the state of South Carolina, it's illegal to say that a product is from South Carolina when it's not. Earlier this year, this company, Seed Consulting, began doing testing all over the country. We were the 8th state to get tested. And when they did their testing in Charleston, they tested 44 restaurants, found that 4 were advertising local shrimp and selling it, 15 were not advertising local shrimp and not selling it, and 25, according to them, were advertising in some form or fashion that they had local shrimp and were not. As a result of that, the South Carolina Shrimpers Association got me to bring an action against these people to knock it off. When the results came back and the people who did the testing discussed with the shrimpers what their plan was, it wasn't satisfactory to them. So we kind of got together and said, Ged, what are we going to do about it? I said, I don't know, but we're going to do something.
Right.
So I sat down and went into law books and just started digging and found that, if you look at the Lanham Act, which is a trademark act of like 1964,
right.
There's a subsection with an amendment, and the subsection of the amendment that's been amended that says a competitor, not a consumer, a competitor can sue somebody who's making misrepresentations about the origin or contents of their food products.
There you go.
And I said, that is just, wow, that's remarkably on point.
Right, it's what's happening.
Still in federal court, which is right where I want to be. I think it's the right place. It's going to keep everybody accountable and keep the case moving in a timely fashion. I think we've got 17 defendants left. We've had pretty good success. We've been peeling off some of the smaller, less offensive offenders. But the ones that are left are mad. They're digging their heels in. They're mad at me. I ain't welcome on Shem Creek. But we're not backing down. The response that we've gotten confirms for me that the only way to get these people to do the right thing is just to kick them in the head until they do it.
Well, because, I mean, now correct me if I'm wrong, but your clients, I thought, were incredibly reasonable, these shrimpers. I mean, and basically that's what they said. They said, just knock it off.
Yeah.
And that's what you
don't even have
wanted.
to buy our shrimp. You can serve all the foreign shrimp. Walmart allegedly has radioactive shrimp. You serve whatever you want to these people.
Right.
Just don't call it local shrimp if it's not.
Exactly.
That's the position.
I mean, if they just said,
And they're mad at
shrimp,
us for that.
If they said, we just sell shrimp.
Yeah, we say
you
we
wouldn't
sell
have a
shrimp.
problem.
Yeah.
It's just crazy that they're so unwilling to do that. It's such
And
a reasonable request.
the rules around this stuff, they're not secret. They're put out by the FTC, by the Federal Trade Commission. They've got opinions and opinion letters to restaurants, and they've got guidance of things that you can do to avoid giving the net impression that your seafood is local. They say the term local is ambiguous. I don't necessarily agree with that, and we're just going to have to see where that goes.
Yeah. I mean, local, I don't know. I think you can define it. It's right here, right?
The court defines it. There's local rules
Yeah, there you go.
that apply in Charleston and not Anderson. But the real cornerstone of the Shrimpgate case is a lot of people want to bicker about what the term local means. Does it mean Gulf caught? Does it mean East Coast? Does it mean South Carolina, Georgetown? Does New Jersey count? Those are all great questions that really don't matter because the shrimp that failed is Vanamay shrimp that only lives in the Pacific Ocean. And I know that's not local.
So they're bringing it in from Asia, basically,
Yes.
is what we're saying.
They
So
either
we
fall
know that's
under,
not local.
yeah, we know it ain't.
Yeah. It's shrimply unbelievable.
It's shrimply unacceptable.
I love it.
It's been a knife fight. I've been eating a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Not welcome at most restaurants.
Right.
A lot of restaurant people mad at me. But the shrimpers they're good guys. They're fun guys. They're wonderful people. And it's easier to fight when you're representing nice people.
Absolutely.
You can fight hard all the time when you're representing nice people. And I think we've got a strong legal foundation and we're pushing forward, but the progress is not quick because it hadn't been done before. Nobody's done this.
Right.
Part of the history of our firm is fighting the impossible fights, doing the stuff that hadn't been done before, from Dad's case against the Coast Guard for the Morning Dew to the FBI case, now Shrimpgate, and even more recently, I guess just before Shrimpgate, we got a good ruling in our case against the NFL.
Yeah, talk about that. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Tell me about the NFL case a little bit.
So my client played football in the NFL. At some time during his career in the NFL, he had some concussions.
Right.
The NFL had undertaken a duty to do some things that we don't believe they did. And as a result of that, he suffered more than one concussion in one game, which, as anybody will tell you, is not good.
Not good.
Subsequent to that, he murdered 6 people, then killed himself.
Oh, my gosh. I think I remember reading about this now. Yeah.
When they did the autopsy in Rock Hill, they said, wow. And they sent the body down to MUSC here in Charleston. And in MUSC, they opened him up and looked at his brain and again said, wow, there's just a ton of trauma here. There's necrotic tissue. There's a bunch of dead spots in his brain. And they sent it to Boston University, who's the leader in CTE research. And Boston University's press conference, their opinion was the only person they've ever seen that had CTE worse than my client was Aaron Hernandez.
Wow.
And CTE, as we know, is being increasingly linked to violent behavior and poor self-control and impulses. And that is the theory, is that the NFL's negligence resulted in this guy's brain injury, which led to his violent and uncontrollable actions. As far as I can tell, and as far as Michael can tell, we're the only people in the country to ever sue the NFL and keep the case in state court. Nobody else has done it. Everybody else gets snapped up by the collective bargaining agreement. Sure. You get removed to federal court, you get removed to Pennsylvania, and then you get thrown in the common fund. Due to some facts that are unique about our case and are the way that our case played out, we were able to avoid getting snapped up with everybody else. And right now we're fighting. They've got a motion to dismiss and a motion for summary judgment against us, and we're compelling them because they didn't answer any discovery at all, just gave us nothing.
Objections.
But it like the other case, it's the first of its kind. Nobody's done it before, and blazing a trail is hard work, but it's exciting. It's easy to get invested in doing something for the first time, but it's nerve-wracking because it's a bit of a minefield. You step wrong and you're sucked up into that collective bargaining agreement. Our NFL case is pending. We've got the college has a motion for summary judgment. The NFL has a motion to dismiss, and we've got a motion to compel. We're waiting on a hearing for that, and that outcome will probably make a pretty big difference in what the next steps are.
So talk to me about the future. I know you got a growing family. Congratulations ahead of advance. It's coming down the road.
Another baby soon.
Yeah, number 2. But what's the next 10 years look like for Gedney Howe?
That's a good question. if the NFL doesn't take me out and the restaurants don't take me out and Snapchat doesn't take me out, if I make it, hopefully more bigger, exciting cases. We've got the big cases, but you've also got your day-to-day cases that you're working on. Continuing the legacy of doing good work, continue the legacy of doing hard work and taking care of your people and trying to make a difference is the goal. And ultimately, doing right by my daddy and carrying on a legacy of being a pretty good guy.
You're not going anywhere. You'll be right here, right?
We ain't going anywhere.
That's what I thought. Well, Gedney, thank you so much, man. Seriously, this has been great. Hey, big thanks today to Gedney Howe IV for coming and talking to us about maintaining a legacy in a law firm for generation after generation. Thank you all for being here for episode 6 of Practical Law. Stay informed, stay with us. We'll be coming at you soon with episode 7.